Data and technology are transforming the insurance industry every day, and the future, it's full of possibilities. Last year at AIS, we explored how innovation in safety technology can help prevent and reduce worker injuries. And today, we are examining the latest advancements in data and technology that are transforming claims and medical management. From streamlining claims intake to delivering the right care at the right time for injured workers, technology and data analytics are making an impact and influencing the dynamics of return to work. But what's next in state-of-the-art medical treatments? And as automation and artificial intelligence continue to grow, how does the human element remain at the heart of decision-making? Today, our panel of experts will explore how data and technology are transforming claims management. Please welcome our session moderator, Damian D, and our panelists, Debra Kane, Neil DeBlock, and Dr. Jill Rosenthal.
Good afternoon, everyone. How about that exciting video? We're trying to get you pumped up for the afternoon. Hopefully everybody's excited. Well, that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today. Our expert panel is going to be talking about the potential implications that data and technology, including AI, have on our industry, more specifically workers' compensation and claims. If you were here last year, you may remember that we had a panel that talked about safety technologies and their impact on injury prevention. We're going to take it to the next step. This year, we're going to focus on what are the implications for the claims and medical management process. Now, we all hope that an injury never happens, but if and when it does, what are these technologies that are transforming that claims and medical management process? So we will be talking about that. We're also going to talk about how it helps that injured worker, how it potentially helps return to work, and we'll be exploring the benefits and the potential concerns of some of these technologies. So with that, I want to introduce this amazing panel that I have today. So first, Debbie Kane is head of workers' compensation and vice president at CNA. She is involved in leadership of the claims technical and the medical strategies area. She's also been in the industry for over 30 years. And she's
30-ish.
I'll say that later. Lots of experience and insight. She also is a member of the Work Comp Research Institute, as well as NCCI's Medical Data Research Committee. Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you.
Next is Neil DeBlock. He's also head of the workers' compensation and vice president at Zurich North American Insurance. He also has 30-plus years experience, I'll say that lightly, in the industry, which is great insights. He has been at multiple organizations and had multiple leadership and claims roles. He is also a member of the Workers' Compensation Research Institute and the California Workers' Compensation Institute. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you.
And then welcoming back to the stage here at AIS is Dr. Jill Rosenthal. She's the chief medical officer, at Zenith. I forgot that key ingredient. At Zenith Insurance. She's also board certified in occupational and environmental medicine. Been practicing for over 20 years. Interesting fact is she's working on a unique master's program at Duke. It's called Quantitative Management for Health Analytics. She's also the president-elect of the American College for Occupational Environmental Medicine. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
And she's a past member of our Medical Data Research Committee as well. So as you can see, and I'll say this very lightly, over 80 years of insights that we're going to be talking about today. So I'm very excited about that. Glad to have you all. So with that, I'm going to jump right in to our questions, and I'm going to start with you, Debbie. So over the last several hours, or more than several hours, you've heard a lot about data and workers' compensation. What are the implications of data? How does it impact our line of business? Specifically, looking at the claims line. Mm-hmm. So what do you see about the types of data, the timing, and potentially the quality of data, and how is it changing today and maybe in the future?
Yeah, it's an interesting, so in this industry, we've always had access to a ton of data. We've had a ton of data in our claim files, in our medical reports, and medical bills. I think we've struggled at times to really harness the data. It has always been as consumable. So over the last several years, we've made advancements in terms of not just structured data and what are we putting in data fields that's better quality, but also the ability to mine file notes, to read handwritten PT notes to get better quality data that we can then use. And the timing of it also, we're now able to, maybe in the past we would see quarterly reports or monthly reports with insights from data trends. We're now getting that daily, maybe even real time. So both the quality and the timing of the data is really helpful to us in terms of like understanding root causes, understanding where we need to be more actionable in terms of the actions we're taking. You heard Tracy today, I liked how she said, we're moving from data being rear view mirror to being GPS. And then I think a real example of that, many in this room over the last several years, we've been worried about or watching closely medical inflation, trying to understand the potential impact to us. And you heard Tracy go through, so 6% medical severity. I heard it, Tracy, 6% indemnity, 6% medical. Thank you for keeping it easy. But in the medical space, so in that 6%, you break it down and price is relatively benign. But it's utilization where we're finding some increases in some variability. And for us, in a claims organization, the way we action, if it's price of goods and services versus if it's utilization, are very different. So we're now able to get down to a granular level from a root cause perspective. It's just incredibly useful for us to be more thoughtful in terms of how we manage medical, how we manage indemnity, and ultimately should lead to better outcomes.
Thank you. Neil, do you have anything you want to add?
More about reserving than anything else. Of course, everything Debbie said is correct. Yeah, of course it is, right. And the ultimate goal is to have our workers go back to work, back to work and back to their pre-injury status and help our employer. But in the backroom part, we're looking at reserving. And end of the day, it's a business. And the faster we get reserves up, the better off we are. The data we have nowadays is allowing us to get that faster. I think you saw today, we're seeing more $2 million claims. Now, are we really? Or they're just getting up there faster, which I think is the case more than anything else. On those $10 million cases, those $5 million cases, I think it was 1 in 28,000 is the number I believe I saw today. I feel like I see more of those than that, though, it seems like sometimes. But those are the ones that are really scary for us. So as you see those, and we're a big organization, but those smaller organizations would have a bigger impact on their bottom line, a $10 million loss. The faster we get it up there with the data we mentioned, the better off we are. There's nothing worse than having go out there with an underwriter and price it without knowing the ultimate cost of a large claim like that. It's happened before, it's going to happen again. Underwriters are out there and they see it, and it's happened before, right? You go out there, you with a new price for a new account, and all of a sudden, no one told you there's a $10 million claim out there, or a claim is going to jump the increase pretty quickly, and you're pricing it incorrectly. So also for our actuaries out there, and I'll be a big fan of the actuaries today, I'm sure, when I talk about that, but as far as, the faster we price that large claim, the faster you can do your IBNR and things like that. So we're using that data everywhere we go. Like I said, the faster we have that data, the better off we are.
Okay, thank you for that. Timing is definitely important. Timing and speed of data.
Correct.
Jill?
So Debbie, you talked about the quality of PT notes, and it made me think about AI and the origins of AI, and it was actually originating from postal zip codes, so that the postal service could get mail to where it needed to go. So if you can read everybody's scratch handwriting, then perhaps we will be able to read PT notes and doctor notes for those people who are still handwriting anything. But then Raji was talking about something with 1 in 8 injured workers having major surgery. Was that in 2022? And if you think about the advancements, if we could actually say, was that the right number? Maybe it was, or should have been 1 in 50. Like, what is that number? And these advancements in quality of data can help us get there. But it's not just existing in space. It requires human involvement. So as long as you have clean data, right, unbiased data, training the AI, that's so critical. If you have dirty data training it, you're going to get dirty outcomes. So if you have clean, unbiased data to train the AI, and then humans thinking about, well, what's relevant to my question? Where can I make a meaningful change or impact? That's when AI can be a super useful tool within workers' compensation.
Yeah, definitely the power of data, and you've kind of teed it up already, the technology, and we're jumping ahead, we're getting excited on the AI and technology. So with that being said, yeah, data is like the key ingredient. I think that message has been pretty clear all day. We start with that, then how does it transform into the technology and going forward. So we wanted to figure out a little bit, where is the industry, or more specifically, where is this audience today in relations to the AI question when it comes to claims. So we have a couple questions that we asked of our carrier attendees, and I greatly appreciate, we had almost 125 responses, which was amazing and appreciated. We asked 3 pretty simple questions. The first was, are you currently using AI technology in your workers' compensation claims processes or operations? And then the second was, if you are, what technology or technologies are you using? It can be multiple. And then a general question was, when does your company plan to invest heavily in AI technology? And that's just all AI technology, not just the claims. So the results are in. Where's the drum roll? I like it. So what you see there is kind of interesting, but maybe not to everyone, is that over a third of the respondents indicated that they're not currently using AI technology in their claims operations. And then when you say they're not using and they're not sure, you're over 50% of the respondents. We're not quite sure where it's at. So I guess that makes today's discussion a little relevant for the audience, hopefully. And then when we asked what type of technologies are being used, there's a couple standouts. We will be focusing in on those today, is the claim triage assignments and the claim file summaries, as well as some others. And then we also, when we came to the general AI question about investing, that was pretty unanimous. When you look at currently investing today and over the next 1 to 2 years, it was over 70%. So there is a lot of movement in this, maybe just not so fast in the claims arena. So let's increase some awareness today. So I showed you the results. Today, there's a vast universe of these different technologies that can apply. We would be here till tomorrow or next week if we were going to dive and talk about all of them. But you can see there are some out there. But today, we're going to focus on just a couple. So with that being said, I'm going to jump right in and talk about that top one. Claims assignments, claims triage and assignments, or staff assignments, however you might want to call it. So I'm going to start with you again, Debbie. I'm not picking on you, I'm just starting again. We're going to get around to everybody.
All good.
So, when you look at the claims triage and assignments, I don't want to assume that everybody knows what that is, because not everybody in here is in claims.
Sure.
So I would like if you could kind of explain how that works and what is this technology, and then maybe the benefit, and then we can talk about concerns as well. But,
sure.
So just kind of give that layman's version of what it is.
So one of the things we do in workers' comp is we're always encouraging our insureds to report claims timely. It's important to us in terms of investigating the claim, regulatory compliance, all of those things. But what happens often then is insureds are reporting claims with very little information. So dating myself, there was a time where you would get a first notice of loss and a claim manager might read the information on it, see that an individual tweaked his back lifting at work, and use kind of your best assessment in terms of what we think the exposure on that claim might be, and assign it to the appropriate claim professional who we think would be able to manage it. So then predictive models came along, and predictive models were really designed to forecast future exposures based on historical data. So a predictive model could look at that same piece of information, but take in other components, the injured worker's age, occupation, maybe where they lived and their access to medical care, and do a much better job of more accurately projecting what the complexity or severity might be on that file. And it may help, and it would help us to then assign it to the right individual at the right time, and also assign a nurse to the claim if there were clinical resources needed. So predictive models have really helped improve the accuracy of claim assignments. Now we're talking about AI, which brings a whole nother level of functionality in terms of machine learning, problem solving, reasoning. So all of these things that at the outset of the claim file, if we can get it right, if we can assign it to the right resource, we're better able to manage the indemnity and medical. There will be fewer file transfers. The overall experience for both the injured worker and our policyholders would be better, and are better as we are starting to incorporate these technologies.
Okay, so and maybe so how might that be better for the injured worker? Like if you're, so the claim gets in, it gets assigned, right? But what's the benefit to the worker?
Sure, so if you're an injured worker going through a complex medical situation, and the claim is not recognized as that, and it's assigned to a less experienced claim professional who may not realize you're not treating with the right type of doctor, who may not be referring you to the right specialist or approving your care as quickly, or as I said, getting a nurse involved on those types of claims to help the injured worker, one, understand the claim process itself, but also ensure that they're getting the right care such that they can get back to work. And the majority of injured workers really do want to get back to work. We all know that their life is enhanced the sooner, the quicker they get back. So the sooner we can get the right resources on the claim file, the better it would be for the injured worker. It does have some risks, if you want to talk about
absolutely. We said we were going to talk about benefits and potential risk.
So especially when you think about AI, I think Jill, you touched on this. It's they're trained on models. So if they're trained on data, past data. So if there's biases in the data, it could influence the way that the model sees things. So we've talked about construction today. So a model built on construction losses may overestimate exposures from a white collar book, as an example. There's plenty of examples out there, but a relatively recent one for any college basketball fans in the audience. Microsoft's Copilot filled out a bracket for the NCAA tournament, and they picked Kansas. It picked Kansas to win it all. Of course, Kansas lost in the first round.
Farewell.
And I'm not a Kansas fan, so I was super happy about that. But if you used Copilot's, their analysis of it, it was wrong. And so I think that there are things with AI, it doesn't understand the nuance of human nature. There are certainly reasons why it's a tool, but one that I think you'll always need a decision maker to review, gut check, understand the information coming out of it before decisions are made.
Sure. Jill, I'm sure you have some comments on
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I completely agree with you about getting that claim to the right resource, your subject matter experts, perhaps even not a physician or nurse, but special investigations or whatever you call that group in your company. But in addition, I would think that we have to rethink how we use. I'm going to go back to AI, right? Mm-hmm. AI is profoundly human-centered. It is profoundly human-enabled. I know people are afraid of it, like they're afraid it's going to take their jobs. It's totally understandable, but this is a tool, right? And so if we now reframe it and we're looking before at transactions, we're looking at purchasing something, or we're looking at scheduling, or we're looking at, oh, this gap in time has happened. What do we do now? This means something. AI can help us say, no, the beginning of that time period, that's an inflection point. That we don't even have to wait for that time to pass to categorize it as something we need to pay attention to. There's something about that difference at that point in time, and that's where AI is going to help us, I think. In terms of scheduling, you schedule with the right doctor in the right jurisdiction at the right facility so that if it's a hand, go right to the hand ortho, right? Why are we waiting on that? And so if there are certain things that make it look, that the data looks like something needs to be attended to by a specialist, it probably does.
Yeah, that's my limited claims experience was every minute counts, and that's my perception is this, is if you get it to the right place at the right time, starting at the 3-point conduct, if you get it there, even a couple hours, it can make a huge difference in that outcome.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're going to get your diagnosis faster, you're going to figure out what treatment to do faster, and people should recover faster, and then everybody wins, right? This is about getting the patient to a sustained recovery faster. Yep.
Neil, do you have anything to add, or you?
No, they said it perfectly, that what it comes down to is AI is not perfect. As humans have to be involved in the process at all times, no matter what, and we make mistakes. Even claims triage, Deb put it perfectly in the fact that we try and get the claims to the right person the first time correctly, but I can tell you about 20% of those claims actually transfer no matter what you do. I often joke I'm as accurate with a dartboard as AI is with assigning claims sometimes. That's how accurate it can be, or inaccurate it can be. So yeah, that's perfect the way you both said that.
Good. So I'm going to come right back to you then, Neil. So we hear that claims is a very demanding role. I don't know, I've heard that every now and then, a couple times. So as you look at that role from an adjuster standpoint, what's coming in, what they have to do, how they have to communicate, how they have to review, what technologies have you seen or heard out there that can help in that whole process from efficiency and quality?
Yeah, so demanding is first is understatement. It is very demanding, particularly in workers' compensation. I may be somewhat partial in this fact, but there's more touch points in workers' comp than other line of business, whether it be auto, general liability, property. The touch points are always there. The customer, the claimant, the doctors, multiple phone calls, multiple diagnoses, ever-changing claims, right? Whereas in a property claim, it's pretty much cut and dry in many cases. So as we've gone through the process, and this is not new, we're using this stuff now. You know, you have direct assignment we mentioned earlier. You have nurse case manager assignment as designed by AI somewhat. You have fraud awareness, okay? You heard it earlier today, I think during the first presentation, we talked about opioids. How do we determine at that point how we found out who was having taken opioids and who wasn't? Obviously, it was through data. That data helped us and our PBM partners identify those claimants, get them off opioids, and here we are today, you know, much less opioid prescriptions being put out there. Those are the big ones. But the one that I'm most positive about that we're still identifying and still working with is medical records and documents. What our people see on a daily basis when it comes to documents and medical records is a huge number, particularly on those larger claims. So as we can use these to simplify those claims, bring them down, synthesize them, and pick out the correct areas for those claims to look at, helps us save so much time in a day. Even on the liability side, I hate to transcend lines of business here, but if you worked on liability, you get demand packages. Demand packages come in about this thick sometimes. It's impossible to go through a deck like that very quickly. With processes like this, you can take that deck and go through it in almost no time.
Yeah, so I've heard, I think you talked about spending the right time, right place, like quality cognitive time, right? So, and I don't want to put you on the spot on numbers, but, you know, I won't use number of case files, like an adjuster has a lot of case files, right? And they have to look at on a regular basis, maybe 100 pages of notes, and this can actually help them focus their time.
Yeah, so I mean, you have 100 actuaries in the room here. You're asking me to do math. That's kind of funny, but they can do the math for us. But, you know, if a claim professional, for instance, has to look at, say, 10 medical records in a day for some reason, right? And it takes them 2.5 hours to do, and instead you go through a program like AI, and now it becomes a half hour of time, you're saving 2 hours a day. That's 10 hours a week. Now you're taking Fridays off. No, you're not really taking Fridays off. But end of the day, you're using that time to reinvest it in somewhere else in the file that serves more purpose on the outcome of the file. Litigation management, customer service, getting deeper into the medical, things like that.
You know, another great example, if I can, on that is in the medical summarization space is, you know, like our industry, like every others, has turnover. We have people move into different positions. We have all sorts of reasons that files are transferred. And so the long tail of our line of business, to your point, Neil, there's, you know, you could have files reassigned to you. It could have thousands of medical reports in it. And what AI through medical summarization has the potential to do is really just summarize all of the medical. When did this diagnosis first show up? When did this doctor show up? What's the timeline? So that any given claim professional doesn't need to spend hours reviewing a file. Now they can have a really good synopsis of it that then helps them to more quickly go forward, and also just to ensure that we're addressing all the components of the medical, that we're not missing anything. So I think there's a huge opportunity when it comes to, because we do see, you know, you said 20% of, which is probably a fair estimate of files transfer. And in that space, I think it could be very impactful.
And it transcends the carrier, right? So as a physician, if I received hundreds of pages or thousands of pages of records, and now I have a tool that will help me, as you said, synthesize that, but create a timeline. I want to know what happened that first day this person got hurt, even if it's 20 years later. I want to understand the progression to know how we got here today so that I know where to go tomorrow. And it's like, if you think about the time, if you're referring out to a doctor now and the doctor's like, well, I have to review the records before I'll even agree to see the patient. And how long does that take? And now you've just added this huge delay to the claim. There are tools that can help them look at the records and the summary of the records and really identify Are they able to help this patient? Because that's what they want to know. Is there anything I can actually do for this patient? For all of the funny things that happen within medicine and that physicians are unfortunately a part of sometimes, I think they really just want to know, can I do something here? And that's how this can help. The summarization of the data and creating timelines can help a specialist determine if they can take that patient on, which will get that off your desk, right, and move it along. And what is this about? This moves it along for the patient, their family, their community, the employer, the employees. I think sometimes we forget that all of the humans who are impacted by workers' comp injuries and illnesses.
Now, it's funny you said human. So one of the concerns, we hear about all the time is human in the loop.
Yep.
We talk about that. So, and especially with when you're looking at all the summarization and helping with decision making. So how does that happen?
I think you have to make sure that you're keeping your eye on what you're finding in the records. No two claims are exactly alike, right? You could have two individuals who are twins, right? Born the same day, obviously, same mother, grow up, married twin sisters for all we know, same job. They both tear an ACL on the same day, and you can't detect whether or not one of those people is going to actually recover faster than the other. Maybe one person is going to PT one day and has a car accident, and that person all of a sudden now has a second workers' comp injury, and you can't detect that through AI. So that's why I think it's always important to make sure that the humans in the whole process and making the decisions more than anything else.
Yeah, and also just having the free time to interact with the patient. So now all this administrative stuff, the burden of all of that is kind of alleviated, and you can show empathy to the injured worker. You can find out about individual unique characteristics of them, of their injury, of the case, to help them get on the right path to recovery.
Yeah, we describe it as, AI or any of these tools, they're like an assistant. They are not the decision maker, they're not the final, but they're an assistant. So they can get through some of the reviewing the information, kind of looking at all of your claims while you're sleeping and telling you which ones to pay attention to in the morning. It can go through the kind of tedious part of reviewing documents, but then we still need people to actually review the output and say, yes, this makes sense, no, it doesn't. And I think Jill's point is excellent, that it frees up time for our claim professionals, our nurses, our resources to be focusing on the parts of the claim they can impact and they can influence and they should be spending their expertise on.
That makes a lot of sense, because I can just imagine, again, you're getting this summarization, right? So you're not having to spend maybe an hour, I'll just use a time frame, but now the adjuster can actually call and talk to the claimant, or call and talk to the nurse to find out what's going on with the progress or follow up. So again, I think that whole timing and use of the time is very, very important.
And you can't go back and ask AI, how did this decision come about? What was the factor making the decision? You can't ask it that. You need to ask the human, why does this happen? Why is the decision being made? Why denying this claim or accepting this claim? AI can't give you that reasoning, particularly on a claim that maybe would be one that ends up in court in front of a judge.
Right. And I know that's one of the things too that Deb, I think you'd mentioned before, is the bias, the bias and integrity of the data, which again, that's where that human in the loop element is really necessary.
Yeah.
Although I do think that AI will get us to root causes eventually, and probably sooner rather than later. I really do. Yeah, because you're talking about that, and that gets back to last year's safety talk, so we won't go there.
It's learning, right?
It's learning. We're learning. It's learning. Yeah. We have to, the human in the loop here is that we're the ones asking the questions. We're the ones refining what we get from, like if you ever do ChatGPT, if anybody's ever tried ChatGPT, you can start really refining what it's telling you because you're giving it more information about what you're looking for, what you're seeing. It's a partnership. It's not just something out there in the world just existing.
But that goes back to what you're saying. It's how you're saying it.
Oh yeah, no,
that's giving you the answer you want sometimes.
Absolutely.
So it's important to make sure you're asking in the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a learning process as well. Good, anything else on that before I move? I'm gonna move to the next question. So this one I'm gonna come to you, Neil, is, so in the claims and medical world, we know that there's changing workforce. And we hear it in the insurance industry all the time as we talk about, jobs, but specifically in insurance. I think BLS stated that 50% of insurance professionals may be retired within 15 years. So, that's a pretty big number. And as we're talking about this learning process, so tell me a little bit about what you know or what you heard about technologies that may be able to help. Again, we define the claims as a demanding job. There may be skills shortages and retirements coming in this area. You want to have the right people doing this. You can have assistance of knowledge. So what have you seen?
Yeah, so absolutely. So it's kind of funny. I used to do presentations on the aging workforce. Now I am the aging workforce. So that's kind of humbling, I guess you might say.
30 plus years, yeah, 30 plus years.
Aging workforce, that's me. So, what I'm seeing out there, and I have a lot of vendors out there that probably do this now, but, we have all this knowledge for these people who have 30 plus year experience. And then we have that huge gap, it seems like, to new folks coming in. How do we harness that knowledge? Where do we store it? What do we do with it? And there's ways out there now where you can actually take those people, take their knowledge, and you're putting it into a repository of sorts through AI. And you're training it on every single jurisdiction, every single decision, and you're starting from the very beginning of the file. You're starting from the investigation, you're talking about compensability, and moving all the way across to the final end of the file, right? And you're storing that. Down the road, that allows you, as people come into the industry, there's a place to go to understand this. Now, it serves two purposes. It also, while it's doing that, it's also triggering people. It's asking them questions and directing them in the way, you might want to ask this, you might want to ask that. But once again, going back to keeping the human in the process, at the end of the day, despite what the AI may say about compensability or what you should be paying for, you as the claim professional are making that final decision. But that's one of the things I'm seeing out there, and it's really, really interesting to me that we can do that, and I think we have to. As you said, no one's getting any younger, and there aren't a lot of new folks coming in, it seems like. So as they do come in, we can really harness that knowledge and get it to them.
So Neil, so you're saying it's different than the days when you had an adjuster and a senior adjuster in the cubes next to each other, and I could just stand up and ask the question.
Look, we all went through the COVID days, right? Working from home, and I think a lot of us still all are working from home a lot of the time. Half of my staff is remote, so that person's not sitting next to you to ask and say, hey, have you seen this before? They're not there. Either you're going on Teams or trying to contact them, but it really isn't the same. So having that knowledge, that repository for this, is just, to me, is outstanding. And as we move forward and it gets better, I think it's a game changer for the industry. And not just workers' compensation, any line of business.
Yeah.
On a little side note, I think it also comes down to communication styles. So younger generation employees on my team, I notice, prefer to text with me versus call, which is what I prefer to do, or email, right? And so as long as you understand what each person's communication style is, we can connect them to mentors and really take advantage of that to harness the knowledge, as you say. And then on a different note, from the workforce perspective in medicine, one of the things that I think that's really impacting workers' comp right now, and probably auto and other lines as well, is the fact that how medical students and residents are learning is completely different. They're learning with AI scribes. So when I was in med school many moons ago, you're frantically writing down the notes. You're basically copying what the attending is doing. You're learning almost as an apprentice. In this situation, you've got this AI scribe, and I always think of this AI scribe as just in the cloud, like a Siri kind of thing. It's not tangible, but boy, can it be helpful. It can create your differential diagnosis as you're talking to the patient. You hear the history, you hear what's going on, and it's then creating a differential diagnosis. And it might include things, and probably often does, include some rare things, the things that can cause morbidity, mortality that you want to rule out, but that may not be top of mind. Now, to get to your pluses and minuses with this is great that this is a tool to help the younger, I would say younger in their education of medicine people, but does that mean that they're now not really thinking about it themselves? Do they lose that skill set to create that differential on their own, which you might need if you don't have access to an AI scribe, if you're in an area that doesn't have that? The other thing that I think about with this is that the AI scribes can connect to an electronic health record. Well, wouldn't it be interesting, and I pose this, if that AI scribe knew the guidelines, if they knew the formularies, as I point to someone with a PBM, if they knew this, what would that mean for us? Would that mean that we could have decisions faster, we could authorize things faster, that we could really look at what is appropriate for somebody, saving time and saving money. You talked about the business that we're in, but ultimately, at the end of the day, this is getting that person reintegrated into society without having to deal with the comp system.
I think a very similar example to that is, in workers' comp, we're so regulated, right? Every state is different, and every state is very demanding in terms of their expectations, and the knowledge gap, and the, how we train less experienced claim professionals, but just also somebody going, handling California for the first time. We keep talking about California, that's such a fun state, right? But AI can help in such ways. It can go through and say, here are the forms you need to file, here are the dates they need to be filed. It can trigger, because it can, kind of like the knowing what the PBM, what the formularies are, what the thresholds are. It would take that learning curve to handle, or at least the risk, to handle a new jurisdiction and handle it appropriately, both from a regulatory perspective, but a medical management perspective. It would greatly reduce the amount of time it would take for someone to learn or to be proficient in that, with that help, with that assistance. I think
that's a great example. And I would think the applications for onboarding, right? Not just in the role, but onboarding like new people into our industry.
Yeah.
Is going to have a lot of potential. Okay, anything else on that? If not, I want to jump to the really fun and exciting question is, medical advancements and what some of those are. So, you see them, right? You saw them on the video, you see them on the news about these cool things that are out there either today or that are coming in the future. So I'm going to ask you, looking through your workers' compensation lens, what do you see that excites you about the future?
So today, we know that they're robots, right? We know the robotic surgeries. We know people want to use them on the simplest of surgeries, which really is just practice for the more complicated surgeries. But those exist. And this is how surgeons are learning. So going back to my prior point, this is how residents in surgery are learning how to do a hernia repair. It's not going to become an option in the future. Now, what is super cool about what's in the future? Holograms. At UCF, here in Orlando, they have a hologram that they will create, and they've done this with the military. So you can have a patient in like Afghanistan who's being treated with a multidisciplinary team of physicians and surgeons from Mayo, from Cleveland Clinic, from Hopkins, all trying to figure out.
Making sure shit.
Making sure she's not a hologram.
Just making sure. I didn't know.
Ever.
We did have our questions. Right?
What would you have done if I wasn't here?
That's the part that I don't know.
So you can have access to this multidisciplinary team of experts. In addition, there are biosensors, right? There's telemedicine. Yes, we've had telemedicine. It really grew a little bit, not as much as we thought during the pandemic. But what if we rethink how we use telemedicine? What if you take the data? What if you then collaborate with all of your partners, the people, and say, are we actually using this to our advantage at this point? So some of it is already here, and it's just how we use it. Some of it is being tested in the military and coming soon to a theater near you. Other things that I can think of are wearables. Oh my gosh, we're all wearing Apple Watches up here. So if you were to look at my output right now, you'd see that I'm nervous as heck, and so my heart rate is actually pretty high for me. And that is something that you have to start to think, well, how could I use that? Can I access that? What would that look like? What would my lawyer say about that? You can do that also with these biosensors that exist for like dehydration. Again, so many different tools that exist to help us understand what's going on in the body. Another thing that I find interesting are their spinal cord stimulators. You may have heard of these things, although I've yet to really see them work for the majority of patients in comp. But they're often Bluetooth enabled now. Did you know that? If so, that means that we have that data that we can't get from the manufacturers on their phones. Wow, that, like when I thought about that, that's really, again, interesting to me. Yeah, I know I wrote down probably, lab equipment, the lab equipment that exists now, they're getting faster, more accurate results, again, decreasing delays. The whole concept of compressing the time it takes to get people better, that's what this achieves.
Okay, as a physician, is a 140 pulse rate normal? Sorry. Any other comments about the medical advancements, or is that pretty much covered?
Well, I guess I would also add radiology. So radiology, there's an issue, and I think there might have been a study published not that long ago, but it talked about how if you don't have a musculoskeletal trained radiologist reviewing your musculoskeletal films, there's a pretty significant chance that you're going to have it read wrong. Well, now AI can help you read it correctly. And that means your patient's going to get to the right doctor, get the right treatment, get better faster. Again, this is the human in the loop. Our patients are the human in the loop. Our people at our carriers who are working on this, we are the humans in this loop.
Yeah, I've seen some of those studies on the radiology.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
But the more advanced we get like this, and more advanced in medical, like you're talking about, the prices increase. You see higher prices for medical, higher prices for experimental, emergency, things like that. You know, now we're back in reserving again, and getting that data quicker and getting it to us faster allows us to reserve that file at the appropriate time so that our underwriters and actuaries know about it. So yeah, it's really important to know that as well.
Yeah, no, you have to be able to evaluate the value.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, just because it costs this, if you
It's
get a
also new,
faster,
right.
less expensive outcome in the long run, well, that might be worth it.
Yeah, the outcome component is huge. Okay, nothing else on that. I'm going to ask you the fun question, the one that you can really open up for the audience. So that question is, I'm going to ask each of you, is do you see, with the evolution of data and the evolution of technology with AI, is it transforming to be a game changer in claims and medical management? I'll start with you, Debbie.
Yes, absolutely. I think so.
It's more than a one-word answer.
Okay. That's all. You heard, I think the way Tracy put it today was we're on the edge of something transformative, but we need more understanding, which I firmly believe to be true. And I'll steal from some friends in the audience talking about AI and kind of its evolution. And it can be described currently maybe as we've built a skateboard. We'll be building a bike, we'll be moving into a car, maybe we'll build a plane, but it's going to advance, I believe. It's going to create efficiencies. Jill, you said people might be afraid it's going to take their job, and I think that's probably a real fear. I would say AI isn't going to take the job of decision makers. We will always, we all spoke about human in the loop, we will always need decision makers. However, I do think that those individuals and those companies that learn how to harness this technology and use it efficiently and effectively are going to set themselves apart.
Thank you. Neil.
Well, I would say, don't look back because you're not going that way, right? I mean, everything's going forward. We're not going back to paper files. We're not going back to everything we did in the past. Everything's going forward. If you don't jump on it now and stay with the times, you're going to fall behind. And something you said interesting to me about AI may create more jobs for all we know. Maybe not lose jobs, create jobs. And I think that the data we have now, as it gets better and we get more in tune with it and understand it better, we'll get better outcomes on files. And that's the game changer for us. I mean, it's not about the cost. It's about getting a better outcome for the claimant and for the insured more than anything else.
So I'm going to make it unanimous here, yes. But I have to go back. I'm a total Marvel nerd, and Spider-Man says his uncle says, with great power comes great responsibility. There is great power in the technology we have access to. There is great power in what we're about to have access to. But we're going to have to know when to use it and why we want to use it, and why we don't want to use it, and when we don't want to use it. And that's the unintended consequences or those risk factors that you talked about. When using this technology or AI, I would encourage everybody to turn to your AI team members, if you have them, or if you will have them in the future, and bring them into your world. They're probably not from within comp, right? And so they're going to need to understand what our questions are, what our goals are, and how better to help us and to make an impact than if we show them what we're doing and what we're doing with what they're bringing to the table. From what I understand about the group of IT folks who are involved in this, they want to make the world better. They want to make comp better. They want to make sure that they are leaving an imprint in a meaningful way. And so if we bring them into the fray and let them really understand the value of what they're doing, they can absolutely help us take this to the next level. So I think that if we think about what are our questions today, and where are we going to be, and how is that going to help us to answer those questions, but also to grow and to create new strategies and to innovate even more. To me, it's just like endless. Again, this is not now the AI scribe, this is the rocket ship taking off. Apparently I like that movement. So, yeah.
I'm looking on and trying to figure out what you're looking at.
Just think about the insights, right? Just think about the insights. Got the word in there, insights, right?
Yes.
That we can get, that we can't get today, that we can bring to our underwriters, risk engineers, and everyone else, that you have that group that works together for best outcomes. And who knows what the future bears.
And the utilization that Raji talked about, what about if it's meaningful utilization, right? It gets to the best outcome. It's not just to make profit. I mean, that exists there, right? You've got people who are going to take advantage of this, vendors who will take advantage of it, but you've got really quality vendors out there who understand the power that they have and that we have, and in partnership, we would have together.
Absolutely. Anything to add? Well, I think the insights we've gotten from and again, I'll say the 80 plus years, I like to say that. So, the insights are great. I think it sums it up that, at the core of workers' compensation insurance is the injured worker. I hope we've kind of clarified that. And claims is the promise to take care of those workers and return them back to work safely and productively. The point of today was we just touched the tip of the iceberg to increase that understanding of what are some of these potentials for data and technology to transform the way that claims and medical management works and can take care and return employees safely. So that's kind of what the intent of this session was, and I hope you feel the same way. I do want to thank our three panelists, expert panelists, for everything they've done, and great job today, and the work going into this, and I know it's not just an easy lift. Also, you can come up to us afterwards today, because we'll be here for a few minutes and chat, or you can come talk to us at the dinner event tonight. We'll be looking forward to that. And if you want to learn a little bit more about NCCI, some of the data and technology and solutions that we're looking at, stop at our Take 5 booth out in the Rotunda and take the quiz. I think you might like it. But with that, I hope everybody joins me in giving a great round of applause to our three panelists. They did amazing.